This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
The European Union called on the United States to take responsibility for the international financial crisis. The European Trade Commissioner, Peter Mandelson, said that the members of the American Congress have lost their mind when they rejected the economic rescue plan and called on the European governments to act quickly in order to rescue their banks. The European Union Trade Commission spokesman, Johansen Lytton, said that his commission expects the Congress to accept the rescue plan soon. Otherwise, this will not only affect American financial institutions, but the whole world.
If the United States markets sneeze, the European and Asian markets catch a cold. This is exactly what happened. After the Congress rejected Bush's rescue plan, Wall Street sustained the largest unprecedented fall in one day. The sharp decrease came after investors lost their confidence in Bush's ability to contain the crisis.
I will talk to my economic advisors after I meet with the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and senior congressmen so we can reach a solution.
This did not happen all of a sudden. This has been happening for many years. This was not a storm. We could have avoided it.
The disappointment with Congress's decision has negative impacts on both the European and Asian markets. That day at the stock exchange has been described as the Black Day.
As an employee, I do not feel good. I wonder, why do we have to subject our economy to the American economic volatilities?
The American economic crisis quickly crossed the Atlantic Ocean. The British government nationalized Bradford and Bingley Bank, and its savings assets were sold to the Spanish bank Santander. Meanwhile, Belgium said that it is going to face the challenges.
Challenges have forced us to intervene. We put a comprehensive plan of 7.5 billion euros to meet the shortage of liquidity among banks.
France will also have to come up with a financial rescue plan. The French president said that he will hold an emergency meeting with presidents of banks and large insurance companies to discuss the situation of their institutions. The situation in Germany is not much different. The German government said that its largest bank institutions escaped bankruptcy thanks to a 35 billion euros loan primarily made by the government. This crisis was also a source of concern to Russia, which is also studying a plan to protect its banks from the international economic crisis. With these developments, one can say that the international economy is at a critical stage. What we are seeing might be only the calm before the storm. Hussein Shahade, Al Arabiya.
The Syrian president, Bashar al-Assad, said that northern Lebanon represents a danger to Syria because it is a real base for extremism.
The president's words were reported by the head of the Lebanese Journalist Union, Maham Karam. The president of the Future Bloc in Lebanon, Saad al-Hariri, responded by saying that he interpreted this as a clear and direct threat to Lebanon and should not be let to pass.
Northern Lebanon is no longer an urgent file about Lebanese, Syrian, or regional developments equally. According to the Syrian neighbor, the explosion that targeted the Lebanese army in Tripoli was a new warning bell against terrorism and extremism. According to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, northern Lebanon has become a real base of extremism, which represents a danger to Syria and requires solidarity by everyone to eliminate it. The new Syrian statement to the Lebanese press came after the most violent and powerful explosion that has hit Damascus in decades. Syria accused Takfiri fronts of being behind it. These statements were described as the most explicit, and they came at the end of several other Syrian statements of this nature.
فيوم التأمت القمة الرباعية التي جمعت الأسد بزعماء فرنسا وقطر وتركيا.
Today, a four-way summit brought Assad together with the leaders of France, Qatar, and Turkey. The Syrian president plainly expressed the dangers of what is happening in northern Lebanon. He revealed his demand from his Lebanese counterpart to send a Lebanese army brigade to the north in order to control the situation. Despite the calm which was brought about by a quick reconciliation between clashing sides in Tripoli, and which in time reduced the escalating tensions there, some in Lebanon were surprised that afterwards the Syrian army advanced and thousands of soldiers were deployed along the borders of northern Lebanon. At the time it was said they were there to control the borders and stop smuggling. Now, after Syria said that extremist fronts carried out the explosion in its capital and entered the country via an Arab neighboring country, Syria's enemies in Lebanon mobilized, and their concerns about the situation have increased. The leader of the majority, Saad al-Hariri, was quick to respond to the Syrian president and said that Assad's words about the danger of extremism in the north carry with them ill intentions that should not go unnoticed. He saw them as a clear and direct threat to the sovereignty of Lebanon, and particularly its north, that must be brought to the attention of the international community, especially France, about the danger of Syrian intervention in Lebanon under the pretext of combating terrorism and extremism.
With us from Beirut, Al Jazeera correspondent Salam Khodor. Salam, tell us about the statement by the Syrian president and the reaction in Lebanon, specifically by the Future Party.
عندما قال بأن كلام الرئيس السوري إنما هو تهديد واضح لسيادة لبنان وهو يريد وصم لبنان بالإرهاب كما قال هو طالب أيضا ب.
The most prominent response is what Saad al-Hariri, the head of the Future Bloc, said when he stated that the Syrian president's words were a clear threat to the sovereignty of Lebanon and that he wants to reach Lebanon through terrorism. He also called for an Arab investigative committee to look into the borders between the two countries and the security situation between the two countries. That is the most prominent response. He also called on the international community, particularly France, to not allow Syria to intervene in Lebanon or not allow it to use a pretext to intervene in Lebanon. Actually, we also interviewed the Tripoli representative in the Future Bloc, Samir al-Jisr. He seemed afraid that what was happening in the north is the beginning of pitting the Salafi front against the Lebanese army. The most important thing that Samir al-Jisr said was that the Salafi situation in Tripoli was magnified by some of the media and politicians in an attempt to make it look like it is against the state and its sovereignty. He said that this is not the situation on the ground. This is the highlight of the responses. However, we must mention that the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's warning was actually not the first of its kind. Before the reconciliation which took place in Tripoli and which ended nearly 3 months of fighting between Bab Tabana and Jabal Muhsin, we heard warnings from many Arab countries and even foreign countries. The United States warned about the situation in the north as well as France. Syria, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia also warned that a continued deterioration in the security situation at the time in northern Lebanon may lead to deteriorating security conditions throughout the rest of Lebanon. The main point in the statement by the head of the Future Bloc, Saad al-Hariri, is when he spoke about the international community and the Arab Committee. About 2 weeks ago, the Syrian military was amassing on the northern borders with Lebanon. There were an estimated 10,000 soldiers, and it was possible to see them from the Lebanese borders. At that time, the Lebanese army and even the Prime Minister Fouad al-Siniora said that Lebanon was made aware of the movements of the Syrian units by the Syrian authorities. Prime Minister Siniora and the Lebanese army said that these units are not targeting Lebanon at all and that they were part of an internal Syrian matter.
Thank you, Salam Khodor. Season's greetings.
Now, moving on with the rest of the news, the Afghan President Hamid Karzai says he has appealed to Saudi Arabia to help with peace talks with the Taliban. Karzai says there have not yet been any negotiations, contrary to some media reports. The Afghan president says his government plans to encourage militants to lay down arms and join the government. He promised to personally protect Taliban leader Mullah Omar from U.S. and NATO troops if he comes back to Afghanistan for talks. Despite the presence of over 70,000 foreign troops in the country, the Taliban have extended the scale of scope of their insurgency. Saudi Arabia, along with Pakistan and Qatar, were the only countries that recognized the Taliban while they ruled Afghanistan from 1996 until 2001. Reports say 2008 has been the deadliest year for international troops in Afghanistan. There are speculations civilian casualties could hit a record high this year. Now, based on media statistics, in just 9 months, around 230 international soldiers have lost their lives in Afghanistan. American soldiers constitute the most fatalities. This while 210 foreign troops were killed or wounded in Afghanistan throughout 2007. The increasing number of deaths is linked to the rise of troop levels. Officials say the toll for civilians could go even higher. They say 7 civilians have been killed for every foreign soldier who died in the insurgent attacks. Well, let's bring in Press TV's Faiz Khurshid. He is in Kabul. Faiz, President Karzai has asked Saudi Arabia to help broker peace talks with the Taliban. What role can the Saudis play in all of this?
Well, Saeed, as the security situation is worsening day by day in this war-stricken country, besides the presence of more than 70,000 foreign troops, the calls for peace talks have started from the Afghan government side. But what we are hearing from the Taliban side is that the Taliban are what they are asking from the Afghan President Hamid Karzai is withdrawal of the foreign troops, and something which is not in the responsibility or in the framework of the responsibility of the Afghan President Hamid Karzai. And they say that the Taliban spokesman has earlier said that as long as the foreign troops are in this country, they would not launch peace talks with the Afghan government and would not join President Karzai in his government. But now the question is that why peace talks while almost 7 years passing from the presence of the international forces here in Afghanistan? It seems that it's believed widely that the international and the foreign troops, as well as President Karzai's himself's government, have failed to bring peace and stability, what they promised the nation after the ouster of the Taliban in late 2001. But as long as the issue of the Saudi Arabia is concerned, we asked President Karzai, who today, while congratulating Afghan nation Eid al-Fitr in Afghan presidential palace, we asked him that why Saudi Arabia? Why not a Pakistani government, which is too much concerned in this issue? But we haven't heard anything yet from the Saudi Arabia side yet.
That, of course, is a very good question. Why not the Pakistanis? Now, as we have been reporting, the year 2008 has so far been the deadliest year for U.S.-led forces over there in Afghanistan. What does that tell us about the strength of the Taliban and the performance of the foreign forces who have been there since 2001?
Well, actually, 2008 has not been the deadliest year only for the foreign troops. Actually, it has been the deadliest year for the Afghan nation as well, because reports from the United Nations, reports from the Afghan human rights organizations show that more than 1,445 Afghan civilians have been killed over the past 9 months of the current year, both by the Taliban and by the foreign troops' airstrikes. But now, well, there are many reasons behind failure of the foreign troops to bring peace, and now we see that peace, immediate peace, is not in sight. And there are many reasons, such as failure of the international community to live up to its commitments, what they promised the Afghan nation: better reconstruction, better education, better environment, better security. But now we see that there is nothing in this country, and the security is worsening day by day, and there is large frustration at the slow pace of reconstruction development. And nowadays we are seeing that as much as people are frustrated and they're not willing to stay in the country, they are leaving their countries and to the neighboring countries of Afghanistan, such as Iran and Pakistan, to seek jobs. And the situation is worsening day by day. That's why now we see that the Taliban have deeply penetrated into grassroots level, in the public and the local people in the provinces, remote provinces of Afghanistan are supporting the Taliban because they think that the Taliban regime was better than the current regime of President Karzai and the presence of the foreign troops.
Faiz Khurshid in Kabul, thank you very much for that.
In a sign of increasing tension between the two nations, the head of Afghanistan's intelligence agency has accused Pakistan of not doing enough to fight terrorism. In an exclusive interview with Al Jazeera, Amrullah Saleh says the man behind the Indian embassy bombing in Kabul is now in Pakistan, but the authorities there have failed to take action. He spoke to Zaina Khadr.
The tribal belt, the lawless areas of Pakistan. Do you think, the strongholds of, the Taliban or foreign fighters, do you think the Pakistani government has lost control of those areas?
When did they try to control it?
They have launched a lot of military operations against the groups there over the past few months, and we're seeing now a major military operation in the Bajur region.
I'm not sure. I am not seeing any Pakistan military activity in Miram Shah.
Why would you want military activity specifically there? What kind of information do you have?
Because that's where terrorist groups are headquartered. And of course, for arresting the Taliban Leadership Council in Quetta, you don't need a military operation. You just go and soft knock their safe houses and arrest them. Why they should need military operations?
Do you think the new Pakistani government has that will to fight quote-unquote terrorism?
The entire Afghan leadership is hoping that the civilian administration in Pakistan be able to bring the security forces under its control. And we are very enthusiastic and ready to work with the civilian government, not only to improve the relationship.
Pakistan is facing a lot of instability now. I mean, there's more attacks, more suicide bombings in Pakistan than there are in Afghanistan at the moment.
The leakage of that wrong policy is now that they are facing some problems in their own country. But we are not seeing evidence. I am repeating it. We are not seeing evidence of the relevant Pakistani institutions is strongly acting against these elements in the Pakistani soil. One of the masterminds of the Indian embassy bombing in Kabul, he lives in an area in Pakistan for arrest of whom you don't need a military force. You just send 2 security agents and he will be arrested. And they know who he is.
Who is he?
I'm not going to say that to the media, but they know because we have sent that information through relevant channels and they know who he is.
So you're positive if someone takes action on the intelligence information that you provide that you can find Osama bin Laden?
If we manage to bring Pakistan military in a full committed manner in this war, yes.
Well, Pakistan's Prime Minister has responded to the accusations. Yusuf Raza Gilani has told Al Jazeera there must have been some sort of misunderstanding and insists relations between the two countries are good.
Actually, I think maybe there's a misunderstanding. I met Mr. Karzai in Sharm el-Sheikh. I met Mr. Karzai in Sri Lanka. I briefly met him in Beijing during Chinese Olympic Games. And very recently, President Asif Ali Zardari met Mr. Karzai, and he has given a statement that can we work with Pakistan. And maybe there had been the previous misunderstanding that has been dispelled.
The state official in Sudan's Ministry of Information, Dr. Kamal Ebadi, said that the helicopter of the UN African Union mission in Darfur, or UNAMID, which was shot down today over Miala, came under fire that was discharged from the Kalma refugee camp. The helicopter, which is owned by the Bedri airline company, was contracted by the UNAMID to deliver food supplies to the area of Muhajiriya in southern Darfur.
منطلقا من داخل معسكر كلمة اللي هو ده الكلام اللي
The shot fire in which a UNAMID helicopter was hit in the Nile airport came from the Kalma refugee camp. The Sudanese government has warned against the danger of having an armed camp like Kalma, which is not too far from the Nile airport.
3 ساعات من الآن وقع حادث إطلاق نار على طائرة اليوناميد في مطار كلمة ده يعني
Nearly 3 hours ago, a helicopter for the UNAMID force came under fire in the airport of Nyala near Kalma. This is what the government has warned against. In many occasions, shots were fired from the Kalma refugee camp. We must deal swiftly and immediately with these types of incidents. The press must also deal with these issues because they threaten Sudan's national security. Today, an aid aircraft belonging to the UNAMID force was targeted near Kalma. It's the same force, UNAMID, that refused to take part in the efforts of disarming Kalma following a previous attack in the area.
In northern Darfur, a new victory for the mission of peace has been achieved. Today, the government of northern Darfur and the Sudan Liberation Movement, the Unity Command, signed a memorandum of understanding and a peace deal. The deal calls on all sides to act in a good national faith and work towards achieving a comprehensive peace in Darfur.
The government of northern Darfur and the Sudan Liberation Army Movement, SLA, the Unity Command, signed today in the city of El Fasher a memorandum of understanding and a peace deal. On the SLA side, the movement's chief of staff, Dr. Mohammed Daoud Musa, and his senior commanders signed the memorandum. With this, the SLA becomes an active party to the peace process in Darfur. The deal urges both sides to act in good faith and work towards achieving a lasting peace in Darfur. It also calls on both sides to help bring the remaining Sudanese factions, which have not signed the peace deal, to the bargaining table.
We signed today a peace deal in El Fasher. The deal comes in the context of the Abuja Peace Agreement. We hope it will meet the expectations of our people, including the refugees and the displaced, God willing.
Meanwhile, the governor of northern Darfur, Uthman Mohammed Yusuf Kibber, expressed gratitude to the leaders who signed the peace deal in Darfur. Kibber said the new deal will help boost the peace process and strengthen confidence among the Sudanese. In addition, it will help undermine those trying to harm the Sudanese nation. The governor reiterated his commitment to all articles of the memorandum. He also urged the remaining Sudanese factions that have not signed the peace deal to follow suit.
This deal is very important and good for the nation. The deal was signed by leading Sudanese factions, such as the Sudanese Liberation Movement and the Unity Command. Through their action on the ground, we can sense a real shift in the ideologies of those armed groups that have not signed on the peace agreement. This is rather evident from the latest deal signed between the government of Darfur and the SLA. This proves that a real shift in the ideologies, missions, and goals of armed factions in Darfur started to unfold.
The deal was the result of ongoing contacts and intensive efforts being exerted in Darfur, and it aims at pushing the wheel of peace forward in conformity with Sudan's resolution initiatives.
In occupied Palestine, Eid is a sad holiday when Palestinians look back at decades of suffering brought to them by the Israeli occupation. Today, the Palestinians in occupied Jerusalem performed Eid prayers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque amidst heightened security measures, which included lockdowns and closures of border crossings, in addition to the usual crackdown on Palestinian roadways and security checkpoints. Eid is also a time when the tears of widows, bereaved mothers, and the orphans fall down. Sharuq Assad reports on Eid from Jerusalem.
To the Palestinians, Eid is a renewed gathering full of recollection and longing for loved ones, with some being locked up behind bars and others becoming nothing but names on a tombstone in a crowded cemetery. As the case in each Eid, tears are shed and happiness is nowhere to be found. During Eid, and despite the tight closure imposed on Jerusalem, thousands of Palestinians attend religious services, which include sermons and prayers at Al-Aqsa Mosque.
During Eid al-Fitr holiday, only religious services will be performed. It is a sad holiday because we are locked up in a large prison.
Lubna is a mother of 3 and lives in Jerusalem, and her relatives live in the West Bank. Lubna hasn't seen her relatives in 10 years due to the separation wall and security barriers. Her only hope for Eid is to meet with her relatives.
Eid comes at a time when I can't visit my relatives and they can't visit me. Eid is a sad holiday.
Lubna walked her way through Damascus Gate looking for a toy that might help bring joy to her children. Eid is for the children, whose parents are able to provide for them amidst the hard living and economic conditions in Jerusalem and the Palestinian territories.
Balloons cost 5 shekels each. Some mothers can't afford to buy a balloon for their children due to the bad economic situation here.
If they open Jerusalem to the West Bank, the situation will be different and trading activities will be stronger.
I wish for all people to live a comfortable life and be able to see one another. I also hope that the residents of the West Bank be allowed to enter into Jerusalem and pray at Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Perhaps the Palestinians in Jerusalem may try to ignore their hard living conditions all year round, but during Eid they have no choice but to face reality, turning Eid into a holiday with nothing but dreams, hopes, and wishes. Happy and blessed Eid. Sharouk Assad, Dubai TV, Occupy Jerusalem.
Charity work, which distinguishes the month of Ramadan, is being extended to the blessed Eid al-Fitr holiday in an initiative that is a model for social harmony among the Egyptian people.
The Day of Clothes is held by the Risala Charity Association on the 29th of Ramadan every year. This report has more details.
Eid clothes are the wish of every child when he or she welcomes the Eid holiday. It is also the desire of every father who wants to make his children happy. However, this important phenomenon could have ended during these tough economic times had it not been for the initiatives of civic society organizations, including the initiative of the Rizala Charity Association.
God willing, starting today, we are hosting the Day of Clothes, and we will be distributing clothes to 100,000 families. We receive the clothes from people who donate them. We picked up these clothes, washed and ironed them, then distributed them to 50 warehouses at 7 branches.
Those who came to volunteer on this day from different places had their own reasons for participating.
For the love and the pleasure of our Lord. That is why I came here today.
The family that came today to choose Eid clothes for their sons and daughters expressed their feelings.
I'm happy to be able to get Eid clothes for my children. May God bless every year.
Everyone today benefited after they were able to please those they intended to serve, especially the children.
I am happy and excited. I came to get my Eid clothes.
The smile of a child is but a small movement of the face muscles, but achieving it is not easy. The atmosphere of the Eid celebrations began early here through the Rizala Charity Association, which addressed the most important aspects of this atmosphere, the happiness of the children. The children are the real heroes of this exciting cinematic exhibition. Mohammed Hassan, Nile TV, Egyptian News Television.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.